Thank you very much. So let's welcome back our speakers, Dr. Chung Ji Tae, Dr. Sunarto, and Dr. Nyak Ina Raseuki. Let's first start with the panel discussion before we welcome our questions from our audience. I have a question for the three of you. So given the topic on boundary, can you still identify the core, or is there such thing as a core material, a core value or main materials embedded in the hybrid music that you have discussed? For instance, in the concept of the Korean act, constructed from the Confucian origin, developed into modern performing art, no? Or in Mochopat, what is the shamanic principle of heaven and earth amid the cultural mix? And in Music Ethnique, what are the musical materials employed from the gamelan, which is rendered by different generations of musicians, no? And also has evolved to art groups employing, for instance, Balinese gamelan?
Probably I should start first.
Yes, thank
I
you.
will start first. Thank you, Dr. Muyco. Good afternoon and good evening, everyone. I missed my greetings in my presentation, so I greet everyone now. My presentation is very short, and I could not, because of the time limitation, I could not support with examples. But one of the things that we could hear from, for example, from Canda Suara. Canda Suara is a music group for the first one, which is formed in 2016 from Agam district in West Sumatra. The leader of the group, Haryo Evenur, did not really say, what the base of their music, but we could hear sort of elements from the Randai, the folk theater that incorporates martial arts, song, and dance drama. So what they do in this festival, how they revive the young generation, negotiate how their past living in today's life, how the sound of the past is negotiating the sound of today in the setting of digital area. So some of the performers, as you can see only from the photos, I'm really sorry I could not present the sound, how they support the ideas of cross boundaries. Is not only the ideas of music, but also the ideas of crossing the ethnicity between Indonesia, from Sumatra, from Java, from Kalimantan, and elsewhere. The idea is how the young generation as Indonesian, meet in one point, how they use the sound from the east, from the central, or from the west of Indonesia, how they, use this as a negotiation, to present the new sound of the new sonic of Indonesia. I think that's my short answer for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Raseuki. May we also hear from either Dr. Sunarto or Dr. Chung Ji Tae?
Okay, maybe my turn. Okay, the core value in the Mumyo Jereak is actually, it is a very unique music because it is not a hybrid slowly in the long term. However, it is suddenly came into the Goryeo dynasty in 1116 year. And the Korean, the Goryeo people and Joseon people, through until Korea, the people in Korea, they struggle too. They try to do their best to protect this tradition, even though it is imported by the Song dynasty. Of course, there especially in the Joseon dynasty, there was a very specific political relationship that is called the Gyorin. So the Joseon dynasty was kind of under the Chinese dynasties and with the Confucianism. So it is very interesting. The Joseon people, the ideology of Joseon dynasty based on the Confucianism, especially Neo-Confucianism, and there is also very important historical book, Akakgwebo, that is written in 1593. There is also the concept of the music or concept of art or the definitions. It is written based on the Confucianism ideology, and they separated for the music for music performance. It's not the performance, the music, vocal, dance. They are art. It's not just separated. It is that's why I said the different concept with the Western musical concept. And there is a Joseon 종묘 제례악, and it is separated 문묘 제례악. And 종묘 제례악 is for the dead king, for the king's spirits. However, this 문묘 제례악 is for the Confucianists and the scholars, neo-Confucianist, and the instruments are also very different for 종묘, the 향악 instruments and art instruments, and they keep this tradition until the National Gugak Center. So we can see, even though there was some kind of editing, new structure during the Sejong or Sejo, however, the important thing is they keep this concept and activities until now, twice a year. So yeah, there are lots of stories that I want to talk about. However, yeah, there is the core value of the 문묘 제례악, the performance, not the performance, this ceremony with this artistic music or vocal and dances under the Confucianism ideology until now. Yeah, that's my answer. Thank you.
Okay, can we hear from Dr. Sunarto?
Okay, thank you. Are you listen? Thank you. Because Jogja rain. Yeah, thank you. I would like to answer Dr. Maria. Globalization is not go up with it because Mojopat is already going extinct. From the past, it has not changed and will be extinct because there is not serious coaching from the government either in general or formal education. Mojopat is part of Javanese culture that is not rooted in today's society. The younger generation is not interested in Mojopat. That's Mojopat, not generation progress. Thank you, Mr.
Now we have a lot of questions in the Q&A and also the chat box. No? So let's start with the question of Dr. Su Beng Tan. This is all for all of you. How do you see change in the hybrid traditions with globalization global? What kinds of boundaries are the performers of the three types of forms crossing now? That's an interesting question. Anyone can start.
If someone, I think I will start again.
Okay, Dr. Raseuki, you start again. It's okay.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Dr. What's the question from? Oh, Dr. Tan Sui Bang. Hello, Dr. Tan Sui Bang. Yeah, for this fourth generation, my observation, as I mentioned in my short presentation, my focus is on the fourth generation, which is now within the digital areas. Within digital eras, they think that the boundaries, the crosses borders is not with the world, but within Indonesia, within the multi-ethnic Indonesia, within the diversity of musical expression in Indonesia, how they can do some, if I can borrow Bakhtin, the dialogical imagination, how this process of dialogical process within the creation, between the musician, between the performers, between the audience, between the music communities, non-formal or formal. That's the struggle they have to they have to face right now. The younger musician, many of them, they are more attached to the world musical expression than within the Indonesian, or within the or diversity of musical expression in Indonesia. I think for now, that's my answers. Thank you.
Okay, anyone, either Dr. Chung Ji Tae or Dr. Sunarto, can you answer the question of Dr. Zubin Tan?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Maria. The problem is, other part is the absence of the next generation to the entry to Western culture. Yes, progressive. For example, television, internet, and mobile phone, and so on. Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's Dr. Sunarto replying to your question. So, Dr. Chung Ji Tae, do you have anything to say about the question of Dr. Tan?
Okay, thank you. The hybrid, change in the hybrid traditions with globalization. In the Munmyojerea case, not just the Munmyojerea, however, before the globalization, there was a kind of very slower cultural exchanging and acculturated too. However, in the globalization, maybe I'm the performer. My performance is usually focused on the collaboration music, and collaboration music is the activity of articulation. So absolutely two different elements of music, especially for me, especially the traditional music elements, and articulate, then create new meaning. So there is no more Korea or no more Indonesia. There is just some kind of a new identity. I think that this is the result of the kind of a creation of a new identity between the culture and the globalization. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, sorry, but we need you back because the question of Dulce Punsalan here is still for you, Dr. Jung. So she's asking, how is the four Confucian principles reflected in the Munmyo Jeriak and Act regarding the development of the self? So is it like, she mentioned about filial piety, the importance of tradition, and we must be humane, or is it the question we must regarding being humane? So there's still a question posed to you.
Okay, the four Confucian principle in Korean language in Yeji, but this is the Munmyojerea, and also not only just the Munmyojerea, but also other Confucian is based. Confucius music are based on the ye, a, and in Chinese language, maybe li, le. And this le is also, as I present, as an apparatus for the politic things. So in what they it was le was very important method to handle the dynasty, and only wise king can make the right le. And there is also good example in the Akak Gwebom, the director of music, Park Yeon, created. He actually worked a lot for to make the Jongmyeojere or other to make new tuning systems and new instruments, lots of things. However, the description in the Akak Gwebom, like Park Yeon has no art. How can he make something like king? So only King Sejong can establish the great art. So it's like more very political, and it represents about the real power relationship between the class in the class, the king and the musicians. But other methods, if I talk about the other methods especially in the Mumyo-jerea, so Confucius is a guru. Guru is in Indonesia, the teacher of kings. So they are still in the power relationship between the teacher and student. So that's why I think the Mumyo-jerea got the self-identity from this power relationship between the teacher and as a teacher and the kings as a student. And filial piety, the importance of tradition, and we must be. Oh, is it personal question? I cannot answer about these things because now the meaning of the Mumyo-jerea also has been changed as I presented, because it is already, of course, a few people really want to offer to the Confucianism scholars. However, now the place, the location of a performance, the ceremony also has been changed. The music doesn't focus on Confucius and scholars, however, focus on the audiences with the stage. It is out of the Mumyo. So I think this. I'm so sorry about this question. I cannot really answer about this because the meaning is already have been changed. Also, I listen the Mumyo-jerea as a music. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that question. It's quite philosophical. Yeah, I'm trying to explain the answer to a philosophical point of view. So this time we have a question for Dr. Sunarto, and I have the same curiosity myself. No, what was the reason for the matcha being removed from the government's education policy? And what did they use to replace matcha? This is a question from Jose Alfonso Ignacio Mirabueno.
Okay.
Dr. Sunarto?
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Maria. And thank you, Mr. Jose. In the 70s, Mochapat entered the school as an art subject, and over time, Mochapat no longer on the learning because the teacher was no longer there, and switched to song the art diatonic, scale diatonic. And the government, in this case, the education service did not pay attention to it until now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sunarto. Oh, there's a question from Dr. Chung Ji Tae. Okay, go ahead.
Um, okay. About the Mojopot. Sorry. Yeah, Majapot. My friends have studied this in middle school and high school. What I heard with the Japanese language. So the last question is removed from the government policy. I don't really understand about that because yeah, as I said, my friends also studied not in the art school but in the public school too. So is it still be educated for the public in the public school? And also one more question, and Majapot is when I read your presentation, it is written by Sanskrit. However, my friends study with Japanese language. Is it something different types of Majapot or same? Yeah, thank you.
Yes, Dr. Sunarto.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Chun. It's hard to looking for the teacher, not Indonesia, minus. Okay, thank you.
I think Dr. Chung Ji Tae, he also mentioned that the origin is in Sanskrit, but later on the East Java language took over the Mojopot in terms of its musical practice. Yes, he mentioned that, no? But yes, it's very interesting that it was removed, as mentioned by Dr. Sunarto, from education policy, by the education policy, but it's still in practice, as you said, no? It has still reached, so maybe there's a kind of a selective censorship, whatever you call it, a selective censorship that's happening in Indonesia, no? Okay, another question from with Dr. Vern de la Peña. Dr. Chung again is asking, although it was not the topic of your talk, I'm interested to hear a bit more about your Indonesian-Korean hybrid performance, and what have you learned regarding cross-border musical engagements?
This is a very interesting question, and I keep considering also a little bit talk about in my dissertation. Wow, how can I start this? The first thing was just because my background is Korean traditional music, so I wanted to just introduce Korean traditional music to the Indonesian society. However, I have been in Indonesia for 10 years, and now I'm in Yogyakarta, still in Indonesia. I think these performances represent my identity. Because I have learned lots of gamelan, and for 10 years, I back to my country just 2 or 3 times, and I really focus on Indonesian music, and I fall in love with Indonesian music. I also want to introduce Indonesian music to the Korean people, and one of the methods was, the important method is a collaboration, because when I didn't know about other music, if I remember when I was 19 or 20s, if it's not that if it is not easy to understand, feel very boring. But I want to show, I want to all audiences listen the musicians' efforts. So that's why I used the collaboration method until now. So, like, for example, when I was performed in Korea in 2016, At that time, I performed in Korea with 10 Japanese musicians, and I made some doraji, Korean folk song, or arirang, or some that kind of things. I rearranged it with the musicians. With that melody, we put the Japanese irama and Lara Spellock and Slendero, and so the reaction was great. Reaction was really, really great. And after the concert, around 50 people didn't back home. They asked the workshop. So I workshop around 50 minutes for the audiences. I think because it's very simple. They always listen this kind of folk music, Korean folk music. However, there is just some kind of exotism, some kind of new sound color, and some new musical system. Even though it is not new, but it is new for the Korean audiences. And it's also same happened in Indonesia. So what I have learned was okay, back to the question, what I learned. This one. This collaboration work is very sensitive work, because if it is different with kind of jam session in the ethnic music festival or world music festival. It is of course it is a very totally absolutely different characters, this kind of jamming music and collaboration music. However, in the collaboration music, there is a kind of deep understanding about the music, because not just 1 week or 1 month stay in Indonesia, it is impossible to know about the Indonesian music. As we know, in the first time I just know about the gamelan, but there was Sumatra music and Sundanese and Kalimantan, Papua, lots of musics. And how can we, of course, the artistic value is also very important. However, in the cultural boundary, kind of it is my personal opinion, we need some kind of a harmony between two different ethnic world nations through the traditional music, which has their own identity, but also kind of a shared identity, which is kind of humans heritage, that kind of thing. So collaboration is very, very sensitive and detailed job. This is actually very simple answer. However, it is conclusion, my experience for 10 years with the collaboration music work practices. But I don't know, it can be developed in the future. I hope so too. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chung. I'm curious, Dr. Raseuki, you mentioned also in your abstract about the 5th generation, which is actually focusing on the pandemic.
Right.
I know that your topic is primarily on the 4th generation, but is there, can you say something about it? If it's a, work in progress or whatever,
Yeah, that's probably my next observation will be the 5th generation, which is, for example, there's a musician, his name is Alfiref, who's using EDM and CGI, the computer-generated imagery, in his, of course, using some gamelan sound. It's not really gamelan instruments, but gamelan sound in his music. But really, this intermediality, what I mentioned a little bit in my presentation, how music is not only one element used in performing arts, but it's just one part. What is belief in this generation? How they negotiate between the past and today's music, traditional music. Yeah, so Alfiref is one example. But I think I would like to respond to Mr. Chung, that one of the music ethnic presented in Ethnic Music Festival at DKJ this year, Margasari, one of the group from Tambun, Bekasi, West Java, they presented works based on Betawi performing arts, namely Topeng, Mas Dance, Ajeng, and the other ones, I think it's Ujungan. And they also, of course, they're using older elements of Mas Dance, Ajeng, and Ujungan, but this group has been, I think they were together from the 70s. So really, they're what is it? They're trying to keep their tradition. The Samsudin, the leader, it's I think the third generation of Margasari. So I think it will be a different kind of setting, Mr. Chung. How are we still? Is it all right? I feel like I'm losing my internet. Is it okay?
Okay.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, okay. You can continue.
Yeah. Okay, I thought I lost my internet. Yeah, so I think there are groups like Margasari, Canda Suara, and some other. They work with their music differently than the ethnic music. I mentioned earlier that the term ethnic music is very loosely used within the traditional music, between traditional music and popular music, sometimes within experimental music as well. So this terminology is really used in different ways and different expression of from musicians all over Indonesia. I just like to add what Mr. Chung just said before. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, there's another question from Dr. Su Bengtan. This is for all of you. So what is the role of women in these three art forms? Are they playing bigger roles? Anyone can answer.
In the 문묘 제례악, in the traditional way, there was no woman, even dancers. Dancers was young boys. But however, now it's nobody. It seems nobody cares when it can be very serious issue too. So if we see the 종묘제례악 and 문묘제례악, usually the dancers from the National Kugak Center and National Kugak High School, yeah, usually the female dancers also join this kind of very conservative ceremony. However, maybe it can be changed like that because, of course, the meaning and context have been changed. Also, but there was one experiment. I just read the news. I don't know which year, but in the 종묘제례, they tried to use the boy dancers, not female or adult male dancers, but maybe they just want to represent very traditional things. However, it seems nobody cares, and also the young girls in the high school, they also can study 종묘제례, the ilmu, we call it ilmu, and there is no limitation. I think because of the modernization, also the meaning of the in global has been changed. So it seems in Korea nobody cares, and actually it is good. It can be also, we can develop more. The tradition is a tradition in the old meaning, but the new meaning is also important, I think. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Raseuki, would you like to say something about it?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's really interesting in the fourth generation of music ethnic. I think the presence of women, it's we can see more and more compared to the third, the second, or even the first. Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier about crossing boundaries between, you know, what it calls traditional music, entertainment, and art music, or between the electronic, the acoustic. But now I think I should add one more, between the male and female performers. So the negotiation is being it's present now. How groups of women, female performers, also part of this this ongoing process, which is coming not only from the peripheral, also coming from the central, or coming back and forth. So it's not like in the past, in the peripheral, music only for female, music only for male, but now in the mix gender, we can see that also, where the younger generation who interested in learning or performing traditional music, this kind of thing, it's really going on. And I think this fourth generation is really interesting for us to see further. Thank you.
So no, you're talking about blurred boundaries between gender in terms of opportunities for performance. Yeah,
right.
that's
right.
a good point. Yeah.
Right.
So Dr. Sunarto, would you like to say something about the role of women in your discussion earlier? About your discussion earlier.
Thank you, Dr. Maria. Mojapat is musical tradition among Java people. There are family performance, but the men are still the dominant performer. It's in line with Javanese values. The man is the ruler of or the power of man, not the power of woman. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so perhaps I can wrap up. So in a nutshell, we've learned about the notion of boundary within the reality of hybrid music discussed by our speakers today. So for instance, in the tradition of the mochapat among the Javanese, following different stages from shamanism to Hindu syncretism, this poetically sung genre has a connection to the idea of the four clustered beats, an important concept which is in Asian music theory, even also as underscored by the Philippine national artist for music, Jose Maceda, has also written about the theory of four, which is an important theory in Asian traditions, musical traditions. So the blurring of cultural boundaries from the influence of shamanism to the essence of sound magic to the practice of influence, island territories that have embraced Hinduism. We learned about the definition of the different chords in music, such as act, for example, constructed by the concept of Confucianism. And yet, it's also employed in a way in different performing arts. So, Muyco, for instance, has functioned for Confucian scholars, especially, which was earlier mentioned, Neo-Confucianism, within the concept and context in ritual. And this tradition has been handed down until today. So lastly, we also learned about music ethnic as the result of all idiosyncratic efforts to cross three boundaries, namely the boundary between popular music and indigenous music of the archipelago, the boundary between the use of electric and acoustic instruments, and then interestingly, the boundary between tourism and art music. So the in-betweenness that was mentioned earlier by Dr. Raseuki is really an important point, to look at boundaries and not just between two fixed points, for example, but what happens in between. The liminality of it is really interesting. So as our keynote speaker earlier, Dr. Tzu Beng Tan mentioned, and also she quoted Gloria Anzolda and Skykes, borders or borderlands can be seen as demarcations that divide people into separate groups based on race, class, gender, nationality, identity, language, or religion, but there are also ambiguous spaces where people of different cultures can be withdrawn as people meet, interact, and negotiate differences. We also realize that borders contribute to the decolonization of music, historiography, and insight into the nonlinear realities of the world. No? So there are definitely various ontologies and agency. No? Agency is also a very important point. In hybridity, for example, and even in the fourth generation that was mentioned earlier by Dr. Raseuki, no? The agency that has actually pushed the generations forward to even create and contribute to the evolution of music. No? So we see this as the praxis of today's music making. No? We may coin this as whatever, hybrid music, poetic collage, or mixed media, disseminated through live performances. And also important is the technology. No? So we see the core that remains to be sensed, whether audibly or sensed visually, and to different senses, as it is performative. And somehow the core is still valued by many, whether it's philosophy, theory, other sources of concepts in the practice of music. No? So this is a very fruitful discussion about boundary and how it cross over different disciplines of philosophy, religion, ritual, even pop music, and how the young generations actually contribute to the evolution of musical practices. No? So this ends our panel for today, and we thank all our wonderful speakers. Let's give them a hand, everybody. Yes, congratulations for all your talk. Very insightful. And again, we thank our wonderful speakers, Dr. Chung Ji Tae, Dr. Nyak Ina Raseuki, and Dr. Sunarto. Thank you very much.